Hello and welcome to 15th JMeter Training video tutorial. Before we begin with this session, let me wish you all a very happy new year. Today is 31st of December 2015 and I hope this year was great for you and new year would bring new success to you. And of course there would be lots of new training videos from testing forum. So let's see what we are going to have a look at in this session. In this session we are going to see how we can generate graphs after a test is over or during test run. In the previous session, in the 14th JMeter training video session, we found out how we can create custom graphs which give us better details in comparison to the default graphs which are available from JMeter. But there is another plugin available for JMeter which can also generate these graphs for us when either tests are run, or once tests are run then we can generate the graphs from the last test result. So let's have a look at how we are going to do that. To be able to do this, we need JMeter plugin extra. This is something which we extracted and pushed into the library extra folder of JMeter installation in the previous session. So please watch 14th JMeter training video tutorial if you have not yet. Then we will see how we can use graph generator listener to generate graphs at the end of the test or from the previous test run. So we can generate active threads over time, response time over time, transactions per second, server hits per second, response code per second, response latencies over time, byte throughput over time, response time versus threads, transaction throughput versus threads, response time distribution, and response time percentiles. There are a few CSV files as well, but we will have a look at them when we generate the test report. Now there are two modes of operations which we can use with this listener. These are, we can generate test results either during the current test run or we can generate test results for the previous test run. If we want to generate test results during the current test run, that is when tests are being executed, then we will have to use view results in tree listener or graph generator listener. But this is not something which I am going to recommend. We have seen it time and again that if we use listener during test run, then it is going to slow down the test, the tool itself, the JMeter itself, and you may have some bad performance impact from the test itself. Hence I won't recommend to generate the graphs during test run. We can generate the graphs after test run, that is by using the test result file of the previous test run. So in this session we are going to do that. We will generate graphs for the previous test run to overcome any of the performance impact. So let me get back to Terminator here. I have two screens here for better visibility. I have launched JMeter already and I'm using the test plan from our last test run. Now here what I have done is I have added a graph generator thread group. This is a thread group which I have added so that I could generate graphs, but it is slightly different from our original thread group. For example, in the original thread group we had the actual definition of users and how long we want to run the test, but I have disabled it here because we are not going to run the test, run the load test, but we would be using the previous test run to be able to derive the graph. So we have a new thread group here, and this thread group has number of users set to 1. There is no ramp up period and I would be using it just once. Now rest of the section is same. We have constant timer as before. We have welcome page, sampler, registration page sampler, create account page sampler, but we have added a new sampler here which is a debug sampler which would be used to generate the graphs. This debug sampler is something which could be used for debugging the JMeter scripts, but that's not something which we are going to have a look at here. But just remember that you need to add debug sampler to your thread group also to be able to generate graphs from the previous test run. Now another new thing here is the graph generator listener which I have added here. You could just right click on your thread group and come to listener, and then you can figure out where the graph generator listener is available, and then you can add it to your test. So it's available somewhere here. Oops, sorry, let me bring it up again. Yep, so here it is. hits per second, bytes, composite graph, response time versus thread, transaction per second. So here it is, graph results. Yep, but I won't be using this here. Sorry, it's not the graph result listener. This is the default JMeter listener. We don't need this. I will remove it. We would have a graph generator listener, which is available here. Yeah, this is the graph generator listener. So this is something which I have already added, so I won't add it again. Now there are few properties in graph generator listener which we can modify to be able to generate graphs with different properties. So for example, we have the name and comment here, which is common for all listeners. Now let's see what is more important here. We have output config section in which we have output folder. So this is the location where you want to push the graphs which are generated. So I have specified my own directory here, and I have a graphs folder. So I want to push the graphs in this folder. And then we have a JMeter results file section. So this section is going to contain the path to the test result file, which would be used to generate the graph results. So I'm using the test result file from the 14th JMeter training video tutorial session, and this is something which would be used to generate the graphs. So we are generating graphs of the previous test run. I'm exporting results in PNG. Then there are a few more properties like graph widths, graph height and pixel. Then if you want to paint marker, if you want to paint zeroing line, and then few more properties. If you want to figure out details of any of the property, just place the cursor on it and then you would see the details. For example, if you want to figure out what is the aggregate all row into one, then just place mouse on it, then it shows you that its default value is false, and so on. So you can configure these properties according to your requirement. Now I will run this test, which is something which is going to run just for one user to be able to generate the graphs, and then this will generate the graph. So let me bring control on view results in tree and let me run the test. You can either click on the green button or hit Ctrl R, and this has begun the test execution. So welcome page sampler is executed, registration page sampler is executed, create account page is executed, and debug sampler also. And now you see control has gone away from the stop button and green button is again enabled. It means the test is over. Now if I go to graphs on my local directory here, I can list all of the files here. So these are the files which are generated after the test run. Now let's have a look at what we have in these directories, in this directory. Okay, so I have the graphs directory here, and these are the few PNG files which we have available as part of the test run. So let me double click on these and open them. So the first graph is about byte receipts and byte sent, and if you see here, the duration is about 2 minutes, that is from 54 to 56. This is the duration for which we had executed test earlier, or the test results file which we have used to generate these graphs. And then we have more graphs like hits per second, which is again for 2 minutes duration. Then we have latencies over time, response code per second. Let's check this, which is again for 2 minutes. Let's see response time distribution. Yep, this is for all of the pages combined. If you see here, at times you may not be able to get all of the data, but to be able to do that, what you have to do is you have to modify the properties of the graph generator here so that you get all of your data in the graphs. Or response time over time, which is for 3 of our sampler, create account, registration page, and welcome page. So looks like create account page is the slowest one, and welcome page has had higher time in the beginning, but then it is scaled down. And then we also have response time percentile. If you compare these graphs with the graph which we saw yesterday or with the last JMeter training video session, we cannot modify the color here. So this is a drawback here, that what is generated here is something which is final and we have to take that. One more drawback would be that we cannot combine different graphs here. So we have lots of graphs available, but say for example you want to combine threads over time with response time percentile, but this is not something which you can do here because these are static graphs. Once they are generated, they are there. So this is a drawback. We have another graph with times versus thread. So we had used 3 threads yesterday, so this is a line till 3 threads. Now if you see, the remaining of the graph has gone outside, and this is something which we can recover by controlling the properties in the graph generator listener. Here we can see the threads state over time here. So we had 3 threads here. This is something which we had done yesterday. Now we also have a CSV file here, in fact 2 CSV file, but synthesis report would give you better information here. So I'm going to just bring out the synthesis report file and see how it is. So let me just print, synthesis report. So it lists couple of values, which is label, sampler, average time, minimum, maximum, and 90 percentile, line, standard deviation, error, throughput, data, which is in kilobyte per second, and average bytes. So it has listed all of these values for the welcome page, registration page, and create account page. For example, if you are asked what is the 90 percentile for welcome page, then you can just scan through the welcome page line and figure out the 90 percentile. Same with the registration page and the create account page. On the command line it may be little difficult to follow, but you can also open this CSV file in the open office and you would see all of these values in different columns, which would make the analysis easy. Now the question here is what you would really use or what you would prefer. If you want to generate graphs at the end of test run, and if these graphs give you good enough information, then you could use them, but I do not really use this option. I still prefer to generate graphs myself using the graph listeners, which we had a look at previous session. For the given reasons which I stated earlier, I can modify the color of different graph lines here, which I cannot do now, or I can also combine different graphs using composite graph, which I had done earlier, but this is something I cannot do here. But it's up to you. If you find this option more useful, because there is not lots of manual work required in this configuration, you don't have to draw different graphs yourself, then you may use this. Otherwise you can use the option which I explained in the previous session. So this was all for this session, and we had a look at graph generator listener here. That's about it. I hope you find this session educational, and if so, then please hit the like button, and we will continue learning more about JMeter and lots of other things. Till then, bye bye, keep learning.